And thank you so much to all of our speakers tonight. This is the point in our evening where I'd like to open it up to members of the audience. If you've got questions, or if you have a response that you'd like to share to one of the presentations or all of the presentations, I'll take a stack, and we'll take a few questions at a time, so 3 at a time. So go ahead and raise your hands. And so we got one here, and then are there 2 more? One back there, one more. Anybody else have a question?
You did a good job.
Okay, we'll go ahead and start with you.
I have 2 comments and I have a question. I think I'd like to make a comment with what respect to Gitz said about they don't listen to us. And I'd like to start with a caveat, and I'd like to say if Canada was legitimate, then it's established one of the most horrific governance systems in the world because it's completely ineffective. It's a first past the post system where there's no representation of anybody who votes. So that's probably why they're not listening to you. And if you paid any attention to this mixed member proportional representation system, you might want to have a look at it. You might want to compare it to the system that we live within. And I would say that again, if Canada was a legitimate country, it set up a terrible governance system. The other thing I'd like to say is I support the call for free, prior, and informed consent, but it has no value without a veto. And I think we should give some thought to that in terms of, is Canada legitimately claiming sovereignty? And what does that mean in the context of international law? So I do have a question for the lady from the Algonquins of Barrier Lake, and I would like if you could talk a little bit about how the Department of Indian Affairs has interfered with the selection of a traditional governance system in your territory.
Before you answer another one, I'm just going to take that other question and then get everybody to answer at once. Go ahead and ask your question.
I came late, so I didn't get to hear everybody. I apologize. But I did hear Ariel's entire speech, and what I was wondering is, well, first of all, I actually recently switched away from RBC because I had found out about all of this, what had happened. And I did a lot of research on which banks are rated top. And actually, the saddest thing is RBC is considered one of the top 2 banks in Canada for the environment. So I was going for like, how bad do the other ones have to be, right? So if RBC and TD are the top banks in Canada, and even TD, even though they're projecting this new green image, still they have, so many issues. So my question to you is, obviously you're not a banking expert, but I'm trying to figure out a way of, how do I get away from this entirely? Because the entire bank system in Canada is funding these projects. It's not just RBC, so it's like, it's kind of a comment and a question, because we're kind of stuck in this situation where we can't escape it. There's no bank out there that offers viable alternatives. It's like credit unions, and that's it. And even them, they have issues too. So.
Thank you. We'll take one more question, and then we'll go to the panel.
Yeah, it's just a quick question. It's about studies like the health impacts of the community in the affected areas around the tar sands, just because there's a Solidarity with First Nations working group that works under QP 3903, and we were approached by 6 to try to start a health study. And we don't know, no one knows how to do that, or how to, we would have to use regular medical science, but we also would like to do community stuff. Do you guys have any advice on something like that, just getting it going and where to look, just out of, because when you refer to these things, I don't know, they want that ability to refer to one in this and this and that, and currently it only stands that the elders are saying, well, obviously something's wrong, but trying to translate that into something workable, I don't know.
Thank you. So, Marilyn, we'll go to our first panelist to answer the first question, and then the first question was, how has the Department of Indian Affairs interfered in the recognition and the political power of the traditional governance system of Barrier Lake Algonquin Nation?
Well, we have our customs, that we've used for a very long time, It's, we call it Unakunigewin, which is what our ancestors have followed, you know, what they have used, you know, to lead our community. But in 1996, Indian Affairs wanted to get out of this agreement, the trilateral agreement which was signed in 1991. So Indian Affairs used a minority group of people, you know, to recognize as our chief and council, only to get out of the signed agreements that we had with them. That's the reason why they selected our own chief and council is basically what it looks like when we already have our own system, our own government system. So it's 3 times now that Indian Affairs has interfered. One in 1996, again in 2006, and again this year. So they keep putting this minority group, you know, as our chief and council, only to get out of the signed agreement that they have with our community. And we've always used this traditional system, even today, and it's basically to extinguish our Aboriginal treaty or Aboriginal rights, because this minority faction, they're working with the government right now, pushing us under the Indian Act system, because right now we're not under the Indian Act system. You know, we have a traditional governance, a traditional system in our community, which we follow. And that's basically what's going on right now. But we're in the courts as well with Indian Affairs. And so far things are, it's moving slow, but things are starting to look good a little bit at a time. You know, with our chief and council. So they've ousted our customary chief there in January again. In January, and when we had that blockade, they put him in jail for 3 months, and right now they're working with this minority faction in the community, which doesn't even live in our community. They live outside the community, so they don't really know what's going on, what our people needs or what our people is lacking. So that's one of the tactics that the government used. So they kind of pulled out all the funding from our community and gave it to a third-party management system that's working closely with the minority faction. So if we wanted to get any services from the community, we'd have to recognize that council, the one that Indian Affairs put. So to us, that's not our chief and council. We have a traditional system that we follow, and we're never gonna let go. So that's what's going on with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. The next question we had was for